When we last left our story, I left a lot of unanswered threads. There's just so many parts that needed to be mentioned and set in motion that it was the only way that I could see to do this. So this time, nothing but answers about how the Princess of the freaking Sun was bested by Queen Chrysalis, and how that would have been her last official act as head of the Hive, because I have a hunch that Queen Chrysalis wanted more than just Canterlot and its pony's love. This episode, we're just running full bore to answer the leftover questions. I mentioned that there's another element gem. What is it, and who possesses it? How did Chrysalis learn about the Princess of Love and Shining Armor? For that matter, how did she learn about the caves under Canterlot? Why trap and replace the Princess of Love instead of Shining Armor? How was Chrysalis able to beat Celestia in a horn-to-horn power match? And if Queen Chrysalis took down Celestia, how could any pony have stopped her? Ready or not, here we go. Twilight's cutie mark, as we know, is 6 white starbursts with a 7th purple one on top. My conclusion was that this cutie mark was crafted for her by the elements of harmony and delivered by the sonic rainboom. That's why Celestia knew that the elements of harmony were coming back. She recognized the element of magic's gemstone design from when she and Luna used them. The then unanswered question was, why 7 stars total and not 6, since there were only 6 element gems? Hiding things in plain sight is a remarkably effective system. The reasoning is, if something isn't that important to every pony else, why should it be important to us, right? As example, the Mare in the Moon story and the Nightmare Night celebration kept Princess Luna and Nightmare Moon little more than myth and superstition for millennium. When Twilight finally hears about the impending marriage for Shining Armor, she doesn't recognize the name Princess Miamore Cadenza. But when she's told it was Cadence, suddenly she knew who it was. Luna and Celestia battled Sombra and the enslaved Crystal Empire 1,000 years before. Years later, Celestia would have known Cadence's cutie mark for what it was, a recreation of the Crystal Heart, proclaiming her to be the bearer of the element of love the same way Twilight showed her to be the bearer of the element of magic. I propose Cadence ascended and changed her name while Sombra, the Crystal Empire, and the Crystal Heart were locked away. This would hide her real name and status as the future ruler of the Crystal Empire so that Sombra wouldn't immediately go looking for her when he would eventually return. I mean, come on, how obvious could it be? In the caverns during the aria, Cadence is seen reflected in the gems as they circle her. Gems that were the exact same cut as the elements when Celestia and Luna used them. And just like with the elements of harmony, once the heart's power started to reach out into the rest of Equestria, Cadence's cutie mark power resonated with it, allowing her to become the next bearer of the element of love, exactly the same way that the element of magic worked for Twilight. Princess Luna knew about the elements of harmony too, so she would have recognized both the elements of magic and love's gem designs since they remained unchanged for 1,000 years. So when Luna returns from the moon, she would have known that Cadence was the new bearer of love. And look who is the captain of the guard. Some pony whose cutie mark includes the element of magic's design. And with that knowledge, the idea of the element of love being a supercharging battery for the Changeling Queen started to become a plan for her. If Luna could convince Chrysalis that enough power could be siphoned off to make her more powerful than Celestia, then the invasion plan could move forward. It would be a large risk, but with the legendary power of another alicorn, Nightmare Moon, on her side, one overcharged alicorn with backup against Celestia? Those are great odds. Remember that Chrysalis said, most ponies have forgotten that these caves even exist. The original engineers and excavators of Canterlot would have known, even if they are long dead now. But the blueprints would be kept. So Luna learns about Canterlot, her new home, and it's the perfect imprisonment place since teleportation out is seemingly impossible since Cadence was unable to. So Luna tells this to Chrysalis and teaches her the spell to capture someone into the caves. Now remember, we're talking about Nightmare Moon here. She, who had been imprisoned for 1,000 years, wants her revenge and has had time enough to know how to think through any and every plan she could have come up with. So at this point, she'd threaten Chrysalis with imprisonment in the caverns herself if she tries to double-cross her. That threat becomes her insurance policy. Controlling the Amora Cadenza, the element bearer of love, would seem to be a more logical course considering love is what they feed on. And this is probably something a lot of you railed against. And here's the answer. Shining Armor's Cutie mark shows that he had been touched by the element of magic, so he's likely got a higher than normal amount of magic reserves available to use. Control him, and the Royal Guard's biggest gun is taken out of any ensuing battle. Even if he breaks free of the mind control, he'd be too drained and disoriented to be any more effective than any other unicorn, maybe even less so. So now, why not control Cadence? Because of what she exudes. Love. But instead of letting the hive feed off the element of love's power first, Chrysalis was bulking up by draining Cadence's desire for self-sacrifice and desperation to protect Shining Armor and the rest of Canterlot. Remember I said Chrysalis would be monologuing. It would be to keep ratcheting up Cadence's desperation. Cranking up her feelings of love and hopelessness and desperation, her want to protect her love. That's what Chrysalis was charging up on for maybe a month. Look back at the drones as the invasion actually happens. They caught a pair of guards and a family of 3 in an alley. What would you bet? That was intentional. Guards would want to defend each other desperately. Dams and sires would do whatever they needed to protect their foal. That desperation is a manifestation of love. So, Cadence keeps getting told what's happening to Shining Armor and the plans for the invasion of Canterlot. Each time, it makes Cadence more desperate to help, and all that desperation is like pounding an energy drink for Chrysalis. Watch the look on Chrysalis' face when she takes on Celestia. She's still unsure if Nightmare Moon's promise that the additional power would be enough to beat Celestia, and it was, just as promised. It was the penultimate step in the plan. Sending Twilight to the caves was just icing on the cake. Chrysalis was able to use the same monologuing technique to make Twilight desperate too, and again, Chrysalis just slurped that up to top off her energy. Before I answer this fully, let's go back over the timeline for the invasion as I see it. Capture and replace Cadence. Drain her. Tease her. Feed off her desperation. Keep teasing her to drain and exhaust her as much as possible. Slowly enslave and drain Shining Armor, taking the captain of the Royal Guard down and potentially using him as a hostage against Twilight Sparkle and the Element Bears. With Cadence replaced and Shining under control, Twilight would have her guard down, so it would be easier to capture, and she was. And because of that, Chrysalis feasted and used all that bulked up power to beat Celestia. All that's left is for Chrysalis to pay Nightmare Moon off by giving Celestia to her. Up to this point, if Chrysalis had been found out, Luna could have denied knowing anything about the Changelings, claiming that she was never involved and that the story about meetings between them were all lies. After all, isn't that what Changelings do? Lie about who they are. Plausible deniability the whole way through the invasion plan keeps Luna protected from heavy investigation and possible prosecution. But Chrysalis just took down Celestia, the avatar of the sun, arguably the most powerful being in the land. If she could do that, she could beat Nightmare Moon and have it all. After all, Nightmare Moon threatened to send her to the caves, and in her own hive as well. Chrysalis now has the power and the motive to take on and beat the last Alicorn princess, the legendary Mare in the Moon. And Princess Luna... Luna would have already expected and planned for this. Nightmare Moon, not Luna, would appear in the throne room, ready to collect. And the element bearers would be furious that Luna tricked them all this time. Tartarus, imagine how much anger a livid Applejack could produce. In her groggy and captured state, Celestia's love for Luna wouldn't be able to overcome the anger radiating off the combined elements. So Chrysalis wouldn't be able to get a last-second buff in power. So the final Alicorn contest of magic happens. Just like with Celestia, Nightmare Moon would match Chrysalis' magic blast, and then would slowly overpower her, using the royal Canterlot voice to taunt, to attract the attention of any drones nearby, so that they would witness their queen being toyed with before being leisurely beaten. Because, you see, any good sugar rush or caffeine hit comes with an inevitable crash. Chrysalis sprawls on the floor, beaten, horn charred, and Nightmare Moon's armored hoof on her throat, horn crackling with charged up power. She would be ordered to yield and submit. A desperate call to her drones for help would go countered. This was my plan. Your children can watch me shatter your horn, and I take control of your hive. Or they watch you submit, and I take control of your hive. But you may still retain some minor role in leadership of them. Either way, I am the new queen of your hive, and all Equestria overseas. Choose wisely. And the drones would be torn between their mother, Queen Chrysalis, who gambled the hive's hidden nature against an outsider's bold plan. Then, once that plan secured them desperately needed food, gambled it all away because she got greedy. The choice for the drones would be clear. Join Nightmare Moon, become her army, and Equestria at large is theirs for the taking. They would start lighting up behind Nightmare Moon, and Chrysalis would be beaten. And that is how I think Canterlot Wedding might have ended up. Dark, yes, but I still see it as very possible, personally speaking. I said no more leftover questions, and I think I delivered this time. So now, I turn it out to you all for a change. What question is still hanging over your head that you want me to investigate? Please let me know, and I'll see what I can do. Until next time, safe travels, every pony. I wish you well, and may Luna watch over you.